Okay, we are more or less here again. Welcome back. Welcome back. So I hope that was useful. So we have sort of 10-15 minutes, and I know it's late for some of you and evening, and some of you are probably also getting hungry for dinner and whatnot. So I'll try to be brief here. I hope, first of all, I hope it was useful, both the presentations and not least the talks. We don't have so much time to follow up, so we'll do some of it in writing and some of it when we reconvene. But I hope it was useful to touch on the topics that we had on this morning, and that you've sort of started some of the discussions that will start for real very soon. I don't know if there are any comments or feedback from the groups on the issues, challenges, solutions, cultural aspects, or other findings that you found. Is there anything that you want to share? Have I muted everyone?
Can I? Do you need me to start?
Yeah.
All right. So in our group, we have discussed it very briefly, and especially about the bias and the prejudice that can come with the algorithms and large scale treatment of data. So Alice, for example, said that what comes in those technological tools in terms of bias are only a replication of the human bias. Like, people have their prejudice, and we have to take care of not replicating that on the development of the AI tools. Then we have Mateusz from Poland that told us that he has been studying the potential moral dilemmas in the banking sector in Poland, and he would be happy to share with us. And then we also talked about the two regulation environments from the US and Europe. Which in the US we have more freedom, in Europe more regulation, and there is a need to find a balance on those on that to have the appropriate level of regulation, not to leave private companies with the task to regulate themselves freely on this sensitive data. And finally, also Radhika talked about the risk of the escalation at an unprecedented level of the data used on technologies. The algorithms can be a problem in that sense. And that's more or less we have discussed. Also, Catherine talked about the discrimination patterns, the labeling that can occur. So we have to be aware of those risks.
Yeah, perfect. Really relevant and interesting points. I will not comment so much of it because we are running out of time, and so unless there are additional comments, I would ask perhaps Rosemary or Telepo or Anna Maria to fill in comments or perspectives from your groups. And sorry, Telepo, for assigning you wrong.
So do we fill in or we highlight?
Yeah.
Yes, so should we share them?
Just giving an highlights from our group, which is finance. The whole idea was to look at finance and human rights and artificial intelligence, and how data can be able to be used to address some of the human rights issues. But the key challenges were being addressed. It's how data is being collected, the predictability on how it's being used, who design is, and there is lack of co-creation. And of course, the human rights aspect of it is never used to inform, especially when artificial intelligence being used within the co-creation and also contribution. And Ioana actually raised a very interesting thing about artificial intelligence and finance, and how this is actually, it's creating what we call, it's not informing the credit capability of especially the customers that are not bankable. And approach that is being used is excluding most of the customers. The whole idea of human rights as a question is still lacking on when it comes to data ownership, and it's being and also the sustainability of artificial intelligence when it comes to clients. How to explain? Actually, Brian brought in about the issues of the boundaries and responsibility, and how it's being used in terms of who actually the vulnerable communities, and how they are being used, how data is being used to as a solution to address their problems, and lack of mechanism for explainability of their issues. The other thing that was raised by Martin is the learning aspect of it, how how governments legislate, regulate, and bring in solution to address it. And a discussion also focused on the authority of regulations, and especially on how to give this guarantee to all, especially all regulations when it comes to banks, and how banks are addressing their clients and customers, and what kind of business. And lastly is about the COVID-19, bringing the new technology in addressing how AI is still being used to exclude the people who have been excluded within the technology, and the new technology is addressing this thing. It's not addressing it. And of course, the extension of human rights does not address the issues, and we need to look at SDG as to actually address issues of culture and social, and linking it to the context of AI. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really relevant and interesting perspectives on the topic. Thank you very much for that. A lot to work on as we go forward also. So Anna Maria.
Yeah. So we had a lively discussion with Sairam, Christian, and Jennifer. And so Christian did mention the bias in the loans that are given to people. And to really clarify the biases, he said it could be on race, sex, ethnicity, economic background, and studies. And that a potential risk, for example, also mentioned by Jennifer, was completely embracing technologies. When do we say it is okay to embrace technology completely, and where do we say that there is a urge to interfere? Because there is, I would say, a potential always background in everyone's mind. Okay, the computer is smarter than I am, the computer is faster, the computer is more efficient, but is it really, in cases where we really completely give it sole coordination over a task? Mm-hmm. And I can also, for example, give an example of this. I was working in a really renowned drink company, so it produces drinks, and we implemented this AI program that was accepting all the invoices from our suppliers. And the woman who was usually doing this manually, she was very happy to, of course, get this artificial program, because she was happy that she will just now click yes, if it's fine, and she will no longer need to manually implement in the computer all the invoice credentials. But what happened was that when we made a check on the sample, is that she really clicked yes on everything, meaning a lot of the invoices were really wrongly transferred to SAP, because she was thinking, okay, I'm 63, this is a smart program, of course everything's fine, and she just was clicking, okay, because the program was showing you the invoice, the original copy of the invoice, and what is going to be transferred to the SAP. But what happened when we were doing this internal investigation, just to see how what is the sample maybe of possible errors, and we saw that it was around 73%. So this is a really, really good comment by Jennifer. I mean, completely embracing technology also from a side of people is perhaps dangerous. The other thing is the ethical role of governance versus businesses. As we saw, and this is something that Sairam mentioned, we have a situation that most of it is in hands of businesses at the moment, the data, the AI technology, and now it's kind of shifting to governance. But potential problem with government is the autocracy. So perhaps we will not have any possible say in how our data is handled if government really takes everything in hand. One of potential solutions was of course self-regulation or government regulation, and also the fact of what is the cultural aspect, because in some countries people really do prefer that something is government regulated, while some people in other countries prefer when it's relied to the market. So perhaps one world solution will not be possible, but yet Christian did suggest that a potential way to really hamper the bias could be to have an international set of code that would be maybe governed by a new association or by the UN or World Trade Association. So just not to suffocate you with, but we have a lot more, but I would say these were the most popular. Also, one of the, Sairame also said a really, really cool example. I was giving an example of the criminal justice system that, for example, the facial recognition system is a problem because a lot of the engineers are white, and there was a problem that perhaps a white person who is mainly or surrounded with white people does not have enough maybe ability to recognize people with darker skins. And while they're programming this artificial intelligence program, they're essentially implementing their bias in it. One of potential ways to avoid this is having people from different cultures, background, skin color, actually programming this program to really avoid potential biases implemented in the gist of the program. And then Saram actually suggested also a story where historical data of neighbors that are potentially threatening and potentially problematic was used to project where police cars will be driving around. And it ended up being that these police cars were mostly in Black neighborhood or Hispanic neighborhoods, because historically this was maybe areas where more criminal was going to happen. And by, of course, doing this, you can imagine you have more police cars. Police, of course, if they're there, see more crime, not that because it's a Black neighborhood, it's just because they're assigned to be in this neighborhood, not in another neighborhood. So how to avoid this historical data also interfering with some future projections. And basically that's it for me.
Perfect. Really, really interesting perspectives, and also on the on sort of the world governance aspect of this, how we actually manage it at that level. Thank you very much. Tapelo, whom I assigned to the wrong group again, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thanks. Our conversation was rather brief, but one of the things that it highlighted is it confirmed that we are going to have quite a variety of dilemmas that would have a global applicability, and some that would be applicable to certain jurisdictions depending on geography or economics or even politics and so on. So I think it's something that was interesting from our discussion, and we dealt with at least one example of each. With regards to a dilemma that might have a global application was with regards to the issue of credit scoring. where we felt that for businesses, the whole issue around credit scoring really presents a dilemma between ethics and profit, because financial institutions would like to score based on where they believe they will best be able to make efficient profit, and where their risks are less pronounced. But at the same time, that means that they might have to discriminate against other sectors of the market that they need to create access towards. So in thinking around what a potential solution would be to that, again, we ended up getting to the regulatory environment and the need to have a much more neutral approach to regulation as opposed to self-regulation. I think one of the interesting debates that we will probably have going forward is going to be the debate about who ought to be the regulator. What is the debate between self-regulation and neutral or maybe state regulation? I think it's going to become a recurring theme. Then with regards to challenges that might have application to some jurisdiction and not to others, we looked at the issue of the advancement of AI versus the capacity for regulation, which is a matter that Mark was also given a question about and he tried to deal with. And we felt that government ought to take the lead with regards to regulation, but we felt that it's not all, and then there is a challenge if government has to take the lead in regulation around capacity. But we felt that that capacity constraint is not a global concern. There would be a lot of other jurisdictions, maybe in the developed world, where there is no government capacity constraints with regards to regulation, but that constraint might be more pronounced in the developing world. And so it's a question that we needed to look at. But there was also a very interesting perspective from a colleague from Brazil who also showed that in some instances, the debate might not even be about regulation. If you're looking at societies, for example, where I think the example was given of Brazil, where there is still 30% of the population that does not have access to the internet. So the conversation there is not even about regulation, it's more about access than about regulation. So the conversations will differ depending on the circumstances in the various jurisdictions. Then we ran out of time, but we were also dealing with a very interesting point around the issue of data and the historic distortions and discriminations that are embedded in historical data that goes into machine learning or goes into AI. And we're beginning to debate the challenges of changing that, of trying to correct that, and the risk that might be associated with trying to correct that, where as you try to correct, you might also be creating discrimination for the other side where you are moving away from.
Yeah, definitely dilemmas, and an example that also refers back to what you just mentioned, Anna Maria, about predictive policing and using historical data in assigning police cars and so forth. Super complex and a lot of really interesting dilemmas. Radhika, do you have comments in follow up, or as we round up? But I mean, this will very much be the way that we will work going forward, and I must say I'm very excited about the prospects of what we can do. I think the talks you just have are really promising. Really many issues emerging that we can dig into, and just to say that, so we will within the next few weeks present you with this sort of overall plan. We are preparing a few classroom sessions, we call them, where sort of general meetups where we are all together. We plan to have 4 of those, with speakers such as Mark and Vivek and others from industry and from various areas to sort of cover the topics and provide the sort of kind of input we need. And then the idea is exactly that you proceed in 4 groups, we'll assign you, and we'll try to make sure that we don't make mistakes in assigning that. And each group will make its own work plan. I think you will be the only ones who can actually do that, taking into account. I mean, we want really diverse groups, but taking into account time differences and time zones and also of your other engagements. I think the only ones who can actually make that plan is yourselves. But we will of course help also in identifying people, or help identifying people you might interview and as part of your research. And each group will be assigned with one or two people from the financial sector who can help provide input on financial sector settings and business areas. It's a really interesting group of people at a heavy level VPs from big institutions who have definitely experience in this area, and then we'll set up a system where you sort of work in groups and then check in with us, and we can discuss your findings and works and issues on what we hope to be a bi-weekly level. So, and I'm of course super interested in. I mean, now you've seen the template that we are working on, where we will try to describe the dilemmas, and we've engaged in discussion, and I'm sure you have ideas and thoughts. So please share those, and please provide feedback. Please shoot us a mail or call, or we can set up a Zoom call. So any comments or observations you have based on your experiences here these days, and of course other sort of ideas you have, please bring them to the table, and we can discuss that. We want to make a good, thorough, and well-planned research process, and for that your input is of course extremely important. But I'm really excited and really happy about the group of people we have together here, and the kinds of discussions that we can have. So I find this a very promising pre-launch. Anyone have comments?
Yes, maybe a good idea to connect on LinkedIn all together, because as this we know who is who.
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
Other idea, but
yeah.
It seems to be most yes. I tried to connect already with some of you.
Yeah.
So I think it is a good way to know who is who, and then begin to build the know-how, the know of each other.
A possible way could maybe be like making a LinkedIn page for the project, and then everyone becoming a member.
Yeah.
I would also suggest, Sharon, perhaps just share a list of all participants in the summit and the titles, so people can also have that. LinkedIn is one, but people can see who's the person and where. If everyone doesn't want to connect with everyone, they can at least connect where they make sense, right? That might be another. Yes. I also want to just add one more thing, that the summit is not over yet. Tomorrow, we do have a very exciting set of roundtables. So in our session, we talked that we focus a lot on Europe and America, but the global South is in this moment very relevant. So tomorrow morning, if I may, Sharon, just quickly share, we have two roundtables I'll be moderating. The first one, we're very excited that the ICT Minister for Kenya and the head of United Nations Kenya, we have a roundtable on achieving the SDGs in Kenya. Kenya is doing an amazing experiment where they're partnering, and they want to partner with everyone around the world to achieve 4 SDGs. So we'll be hearing that, the Kenya success story. And after that, we'll have a very participative roundtable after initial perspectives. And then that'll be followed by the digital revolution in India. What is happening, as some of you may know, India is doing also very amazing things with public-private partnerships to create infrastructure, tech infrastructure. There is the other ID, and again, pros and cons as well. But we will have a roundtable with some leading people from the Responsible AI Initiative in India, from the government, social entrepreneurs from civic society, think tanks. So wanted to also invite, and then after that will be brainstorming on kind of all our learnings. So the morning session, we'd love to have you all join the roundtables and the discussions. Back to you, Sharon. I just wanted to mention that we still have one more exciting day left in the summit.
Yes, exactly, and that's a really important point. I mean, we are very conscious in this about making sure that this is not a European US discussion. These are global issues and have so many different global aspects that we need to look at. Really good points on, of course, we've been a little bit shy about sharing all your email addresses within the group. We'll stop being shy and make sure that we can connect within the group. The LinkedIn group is a very good way of doing that. We'll do that. We are also developing a platform. I think we will probably use Slack. If anyone has great sort of comments against that, we won't do it. And I think Zoom is a good platform as well. But happy to take observations on that, of course. We are also planning to make a web page. That's why we asked for your photo and a short bio. And if anyone has, for whatever reason, any sort of objections to that, please just put them forward. What it might be useful for was that when you all start doing interviews and reaching out to different people, it could be useful to be able to show them that there is a real project. So we are definitely making a web page that you can use and will of course be very helpful in facilitating that kind of context that would be relevant for interviews that you might do as part of the research. But definitely the creating a platform which enables us to share and work is of course a part of the preparations. So very, very good points on that, and that will be part of what we will present you with. Other observations or comments?
Perhaps it would be interesting to speak sometime about the philosophical aspect.
Yeah.
And there are some aspect who was already a little point today and yesterday.
Yeah.
But we could go more in depth on it, and I think it is fundamental because the philosophical aspect are under a lot of other questions.
Yeah.
For example, there are big questions about the way you build knowledge,
yeah,
which is connected with epistemological question. And depending on the way you build knowledge, you develop very strong
yeah,
in the way you use artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So that is already a little explained in the BIA that we were speaking about, but it is more deep. It is how you build a knowledge, on which value and belief system, and then if you don't care for this, the artificial intelligence are going to be systematic.
Yeah.
And it could be really very dangerous.
Yeah.
Because even a human, when he sees that something, even if it is completely coherent in terms of knowledge, but it is not, it begins completely crazy in the reality, then you have a kind of feeling that you should care, but the artificial intelligence will not.
Yeah.
So I think there are major issues in all those subjects about the ontology and the epistemology.
Yeah.
And it would be very, very interesting if we can have, and if you can have some people more specialists in this, I will be very interested.
Yeah.
Part of my work is on epistemology and ontology.
Yeah.
And I am very interested to find other people to develop this, which is at the center of all the computer science. And I have difficulty to find in-depth experts in this in France. So I will be very interested. I guess in Stanford, there are some people on those subjects.
It's a super relevant question, of course, and should be part of the work we do in various ways. I mean, so two things. One, I mean, we made a template for what we call a dilemma. We are certainly looking to capture ethical dilemmas. It's really a very broad sense. So when we say ethical dilemmas, some of it is also simply risks or challenges that we see, things that could go wrong. So we will urge you to think very broadly in that. And as we go forward, when you have sort of ideas and issues, please pursue them. And we will present you with what we are planning to be 4. I'm looking for a better word than classrooms, but plenaries where we have speakers such as we did today with Vivek and Mark. And if you have ideas for additional topics or additional speakers, please send them. And we can we can use the Stanford name to try and reach out. That often works, and will definitely help in attracting speakers for that, just as we will when you're looking for people to interview as part of the search. We're very keen to have an evolving and dynamic discussion. I think we have invited you as a very large group of highly intelligent people. We really want that to flourish and develop into a dynamic and interesting process. So please bring forward ideas that you have. I agree also very much about the wider sort of philosophical impacts and aspects of what we are doing. I mean, we will look at some very concrete financial sector use cases and say what is responsible finance and what are impacts in various areas, what are risks in various areas. We'll definitely also look at the philosophical aspects that are part of how we relate to these questions, and very importantly, as mentioned earlier, the different aspects that we all have. There's a contextual relevance in Brazil or in Hong Kong or in France, which may differ. And there might be different viewpoints, and I think it will be very interesting to see how that unfolds and how that is relevant, how we can also look at that. So much to do, and I look very much forward to exactly as you said, Radhika, also adding to the perspective of the global nature of these issues with the very interesting cases of what is being done in Kenya and what is being done in India and for the wider discussion. I know it's late. It must be at least in Hong Kong, and it's approaching dinner or a late dinner time in Europe and Africa. So. So I won't hold you, but if there are questions or things you'd like to raise, please do so.
Thank you very much to all of you. It was really very interesting. Thank you, Soren, to have organized everything under each of the organizers.
Thank you all. Radhika, any closing remarks on your behalf?
I just want to say thank you, and looking forward to reconnecting tomorrow. It's been very, very inspiring and kind of a very rich dialogue to hear these diverse perspectives from across the world. And in a way, I feel that COVID is the silver lining to COVID. I shouldn't even be saying that, is that we are all learning to collaborate in a whole different manner, but it's opening up new windows where these kind of things which we might have taken another 10 years are happening now. So very excited about this dialogue and continuing it.
Certainly. Thank you to you all for being active parts and contributing to the discussion. Thank you to the 4 breakout room leaders for meeting the challenge that I gave you very, very late. Thank you very much for your help. And thank you all. I look very much forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
Bye. Thank you, Soren.
Bye bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Do widzenia. Bye. Yep. I think we're the only ones left on the call now, Radhika.
Awesome. Should we invite Matthias? Great. It was good to see the participation and enthusiasm.
Yes, it was.
Really good breakout groups and went very well. Sharon, just since there's the two of us quickly, I sent you an updated email to you and Matthias for tomorrow. If you could send it to everybody. I added the guy Arvind, he has finally responded. And also changed the titles a bit. The guy Dinsha is not a professor, so I've put in all the relevant. But this guy is not a government guy, some foundation think tank looks like. So I just added that. The Arvind guy is some policy think tank looks like. So I've just sent you email now. If you could just share that with all participants. Yeah? And also I broke it down rather than all in one lump, the 2 panel formats and the topics. Yeah? Can you take a quick look?
Yep. I can. I'll just invite. I'll just invite.
Invite Matthias, and while he joins, take a quick look. Yeah. Are you happy with the session?
Yes, I think it went. I think it went really well. I mean, both Vivek and Mark were very good.
I hated missing that, but I'm hoping I can. You'll be recording, right? I can watch.
Yes, we did recording. Actually, we're still recording. I'll stop it.